Welcome everyone to the September 12th, 2023 meeting of the Farmington Public Schools Board of Education. Thank you, first of all, to all of the members of our district who worked so diligently and so hard all summer to get us ready for a successful launch into these first weeks of this school year. I have heard from community members. I volunteer at the farmers market on Saturday who have shared wonderful stories with me about their children's experiences already this school year, as well as how impressed they've been with what they've heard from administrators and teachers at open houses. So we're off to a strong start. Thank you again to everyone. I'd like to remind our audience that we thank you for your interest in attending our meetings or viewing them virtually. The Open Meetings Act requires that all of our meetings of the Board of Education be held in public. As a result, our board meetings are the only place and time that we as a board can legally work together, all together on district matters. While these board meetings are held in public for the purpose of full transparency, they are not public meetings. While you are welcome to attend our board meetings in person or watch from elsewhere, we must take the time that we need to address, discuss, and hear presentations on all matters of importance to our work for the district. Additionally, we have come to an agreement on some board norms for behavior, both at the board table and away from the board table, and they are as follows. Listen actively, no sidebars, respect people and their ideas, presume positive intent, use electronic devices respectfully and stay engaged, listen to learn, not to defend, be brave and be vulnerable. And they're on the wall and they're at each of our seats to remind us. We worked on these and developed them together last year and have agreed to abide by them again this year. Okay, let us go ahead with roll call and Pledge of Allegiance.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
Ms. Fox?
Here.
Ms. Weems?
Present.
Ms. Heinrich?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
I myself am here. Dr. Blau?
I'm here.
You have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rich. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let's begin with approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the agenda for today, September 12th, 2023.
Support.
Thank you. Motion by Ms. Weems, supported by Mr. Rich. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Next, announcements. I have several. All right. At our most recent board retreat in August, we as a board revisited our oath of office and our Board of Education bylaws, including the Code of Ethics. And we also had some conversations about parliamentary procedure. I discovered, as a result of some courses I took this summer, some MASB courses on parliamentary procedure, that we are using a very outdated version of Robert's Rules from 1989. So we are going to have some additional discussion about Robert's Rules and our board's version thereof at our November board retreat. Robert's Rules is the guide that many organizations use for their meetings, but our own bylaws and our own board operating procedures take precedence over Robert's Rules. So we're a bit overdue for a revisit of Robert's Rules and comparing that with how we want to run our board meetings and where our options of how to run our meeting differ from Robert's rules, we need to put that into our board operating procedures or bylaws. So we'll be doing that work together at our upcoming retreat with the help of Mr. Scott Morrell, the Michigan Association of School Board advisor who's been working with our board over the past 3 years. We also have worked throughout the summer and into the fall developing our board goals for the coming year. These are our goals for ourselves as a board, and then Dr. Delgado builds his goals for the district off of the priorities that we establish in our board goals. We have worked hard to ensure that our board goals are SMART goals. They are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. Mr. Walker, would you be willing to read the first of our board goals?
Certainly.
Thank you.
The board will continue to monitor data on student growth and achievement in literacy and numeracy on a quarterly basis and utilize this information to ask questions and make decisions to determine the district's investment in research-based practices and innovations conducted with fidelity to address student learning gaps and needs.
Thank you. Yes, I think we have them.
Not sure how to get out of that screen.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
Yeah, I did escape.
There we
go. Okay.
Okay. Our second board goal, Ms. Fox?
Oh, yes. The board will monitor the literacy and numeracy intervention programs being implemented throughout the district on a quarterly basis to ensure the efficacy in improving student growth and achievement.
Thank you, Ms. Fox. Ms. Weems?
Sure. The board will continue to monitor the implementation of district-wide and building-level DEI equity audit plans on a quarterly basis to ensure the recommendations from the audit are being addressed.
Thank you. And Ms. Smith?
The board will continue creating opportunities for discussion and civil discourse between board members and community members by hosting 3 community dialogues during the 2023-2024 school year.
Thank you so much. And those are our goals for this year. As you can see, we are laser focused on literacy and numeracy and providing the intervention programs that our students need to achieve growth. Right. We also at our retreat discussed and agreed upon board committees, representatives, and liaisons for the 2023-24 school year. Our 3 standing committees at present are our Finance Committee, our Community Engagement and Communication Committee, and our Policy Committee. We are not having a legislative committee this year as we completed the work over the past 2 years that committee was established, for which that committee was established, and also the onboarding committee under the leadership of Ms. Smith did a phenomenal job last year completing their onboarding materials for future new board members. So we now only have our 3 standing committees. Okay, that is all I have for today. Let's move on to our recognitions. Dr. Delgado?
Thank you, Dr. Blau. It's my pleasure to invite to the podium Ms. Diane Bauman, who is going to introduce a very special award and recognition tonight.
Well, Chris Greig, come on up here, please. So Chris Greig, otherwise known as Volunteer Extraordinaire, came together with former Superintendent Sue Zervalik and myself and helped to turn the dream of an education foundation to support Farmington Public Schools into becoming a reality. In 2012, Chris led a group of 25 community members to start the Farmington Hills Education Foundation. The foundation targets 4 areas of focus for our funding: technologies, scholastic achievements, the arts, and extracurricular enrichment. Over the years, Chris has stayed involved with the foundation, even as she headed to Lansing to serve as our state representative in 2014. During her third term, Chris was elected to serve as the House Democratic Leader. While the foundation hit hard times during the pandemic, Chris, along with the foundation chair at the time, David Rogenkamp, brought the foundation back to solvency through hard work and true grit. As the foundation is thriving once again, we wanted to take this a moment to thank Chris for all that she has done to support the students and staff of Farmington Public Schools. She's working to step away, where we don't want her to go too far from the foundation, so that others may serve and carry on the tradition of excellence that she started. So it is with my great honor, on behalf of Farmington Public Schools, to thank you for your service, and we are forever grateful for all that you've done for us. So this is just a little token for you, for your office. Thank you.
I guess I didn't need to put any blush on as I was getting ready for tonight. Thank you so much. This is really means a lot to me. I think, as most of you know, it was truly a labor of love. I still think had 2 kids in the district when we started the foundation, and now my youngest is, he graduated in 2015. So it's just really the right time. As Diane said, you know, we're in a really solid financial position. We've got many new board members, and we've got the Toast to Education coming up, so make sure you all get your tickets. November 3rd, and it's really helped us keep the grant program going, as well as, we're really expanding our scholarship programs too. And to me, that's what's so important, because that's how I got through college, was through scholarships and work study and Pell Grants and all of that. So I just know how absolutely important it is. But I walk, as Diane knows too, I can never completely leave. It seems like always coming back. So I'll be still helping out, especially with the transition as we move under some new leadership. Dave Workman is our chair, and we're very excited that Ms. Blau is going to be the liaison for the school board too. But we're also just absolutely thrilled to welcome our new executive director, Elnora Porter. Elnora, you want to come on up? Elnora is a power parent. She previously served as the Lanigan Treasury, the Lanigan PTA as well. She's got a fantastic background in human resources as well. And she will be leading us as the new executive director for the foundation. So I'd love to introduce in person Elnora Porter.
Small thing. Chris shared a lot of my background. I just wanted to say that I'm excited to serve the students of FPS in this capacity, because as she mentioned, I had been on the board at the Lanigan PTA, so now this is, something new and exciting to move forward with. So thank you for having me tonight.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks again, and I just, since I'm up here, I am going to put another plug in for Toast of Education, November 3rd. You can buy your tickets online. You go to ffhedfoundation.org, and you can buy your tickets, and we use the proceeds for our grant program as well as to expand our scholarship program. Thanks again, and truly it was my honor to serve the community in this capacity. Thank you.
Don't go away yet.
Don't go away.
Mr. Rich?
So first, I want to thank Eleanor for taking up the reins and kind of continuing in this very important role as part of the foundation. We all see the impacts it has on our students, not just in their time here, but their time after being in Farmington Public Schools. And, I have heard time and again Chris say that she's stepping away, and, I always see, even after no longer needing to take part in these efforts, you've always been here. You've always been there and always willing to step back in and assist in any way that you possibly can. So I cannot thank you enough for your leadership, not only over the past decade in elected office, but also in this role and in so many others in our community. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
Representative Greig, that's what I will always address you as. I appreciate all that you have done in this community, serving not only as a band parent, because we go way back,
Tuba.
way back, and a PTA council president. That was a shoe that was hard to fill. You've worn many a shoe that has been hard to fill. And I appreciate all that you have done, not only in this community, but as our state rep. And I appreciate the support that you have given me and those in this community in helping all children. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Mrs. Smith.
Ms. Smith?
I want to also, oh, I'm sorry.
No, Ms. Weems, sorry.
I knew who you were talking.
Yes.
I just want to say thank you as well. I don't want to duplicate much of the messaging, but I think you know, you obviously know who you are. I think you know how much we appreciate you. I hope you do anyway, and all of the many hats that you've worn over the years and that you're going to continue to wear. I know that just based on your personality, you're a giver, you are a doer, you're amazing and extremely inspiring. You've inspired me so many times, and I just want to say thank you for all that you've done and everywhere that you step in where you see that there's a need for help and support, and I thank you for continuing to do that.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mrs. Weems.
Thank you so much for everything that you have done and for bringing us the gift of Eleonora as well to follow in your footsteps.
She's going to be great. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have items from the secretary. Mr. Rich?
Thank you. The board has received communications on various matters, including student behavior, the September 2023 National Recovery Month and National Suicide Prevention Month, proclamations by Oakland Community Health Network, window washing service, an admin concern, board behavior and focus, and literacy priorities. The board acknowledges communications and responds when appropriate. A list of correspondence can be found in the board packet, accessible on the Farmington Public Schools website.
Thank you, Mr. Rich. Next, we have our legislative update. Mr. Rich?
All righty. Just one thing I wanted to bring up is that the House is currently considering repealing the ban on the current Labor Day start that is currently listed in the legislation. And so there are districts that are able to request waivers, and they see that a vast number of districts are requesting waivers to start before Labor Day. And so, in June, the House Education Committee unanimously approved House Bill 4671, which repealed that requirement that schools start after Labor Day unless they receive a waiver from the Michigan Department of Education. And so, there's the belief that districts should be able to decide locally when the school year should start. It was scheduled to be brought up for a vote recently, but then was pulled from the agenda. It is likely going to be brought up this upcoming week. And so I will continue to monitor that as actions happen.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
To piggyback on that, Mr. Rich is completely right. I serve on the Michigan Education for Special Ed, no acronyms, SEAC, and that is coming this week.
Thank you, Mr. Rich and Ms. Smith. Next, we have our district updates from Dr. Delgado.
Thank you, Dr. Blau, and good evening, everyone. I want to officially welcome everyone to the 23-24 school year. I know we did this in August, but now we're really back. Everybody's back. So in our third week, we have definitely hit the ground running academically, athletically, and from a community partnership standpoint. And so as we have walked around the schools, we're seeing a lot of energy, high staff morale, and really students and staff really excited to be back and get to the work of the day. Speaking of the work of the day, I'm very excited instructionally that we're continuing our work with New Tech Network, our middle schools who have recently returned to teaming and focusing on project-based learning across all of our middle schools with authentic tasks and application of knowledge at our middle school level. We're also expanding our what we call our proof of concepts work that you may have heard from at our opening day when we had from the Urban Learning Institute, Dr. Leah McConaughey, who talked about the proof of concepts work and really the application of knowledge to really problem-based, real-world applications. So actually, Dr. Coffin is leading that effort and had a full house of teachers and administrators today with Dr. McConaughey. I was able to stop by briefly and talk to so many of our teachers who are very, very excited about the possibility of innovating and creating these lessons in these projects in their classroom. And not without some trepidation when you try something new, but they're very, very excited. And if you remember Dr. McConaughey and how engaging she was at opening day, you'll see why they responded to her so well. So thank you to Dr. Coffin for her continued leadership on that. We're also rolling out, as you know, our K-12 foundational literacy skills block, and so all of our K-2 teachers will be working on that to be taught concurrently with the English language arts regular curriculum. So we're very excited about those academic initiatives at all three of our levels. From a diversity, equity, and inclusion standpoint, Mr. Greig Smith and I meet frequently, and he has quite a bit of work and some really important goals this year. Each of the schools have a building-based school equity plan, which was developed based on the reports from the broader equity audit that occurred here in Farmington Public Schools a few years ago. So Mr. Smith is working with all of the principals and assistant principals to lean into that building action plan and to address those, which aligns directly with one of the board goals that you saw tonight, is the oversight of our board to monitor that, and then that translates into the work that we do administratively. Additionally, Mr. Smith, with his help, several of our schools are entering into campaigns with the Anti-Defamation League and the No Place for Hate school campaign. So they're very, very excited about rolling that out, and the pledge for their students coming shortly. And again, Mr. Smith is leading all of those efforts, and he will have updates for the board as the year goes on. So we're very excited with that work as well. And just a quick reference, speaking of DEI type work, I was very honored this past Saturday to be invited to the Hawk, the old Harrison High School, to meet with a group of our community members in a program called Silambu, which is one of our Indian groups. It's a Tamil language and cultural school that actually starts really pre-K through about 8th grade. There are about 200 students nationwide, with the majority of them coming right here from our Farmington Hills area and in our Farmington Public Schools. So they invited me to come as a former Spanish teacher to come speak about the importance of not only linguistic proficiency and starting at a young age, but the cultural relevance of actually maintaining one's culture, especially when you come to a new country and you don't want to lose that culture and that linguistic past. So I was very honored to be their guest speaker and meet with so many of our kids, and I recognize so many of the faces from the little ones to the middle schoolers and even some high schoolers that I've seen in my walks around the hallway. So just a beautiful community we live in here in Farmington Hills, and this is just one more example of just the beauty of that diversity. So we're excited to be back, and we're excited to do the work, and couldn't be happier to be back with you tonight.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Delgado.
Welcome.
Next, we have our school safety and security update.
That we do, and as promised, we have our Director of School Safety and Athletics, Mr. Tom Shelton, and he's brought along some friends tonight that he will introduce, and he's going to give you a broad overview of the wonderful work we've done on school safety and security in these last couple of years.
Thank you, Dr. Delgado. I'd like to invite the members from our different police departments to come up and stand behind me. The chiefs of both of our departments are with us here tonight. And what we really wanted to do tonight is just provide an overview of the things that we have done specifically over the last year, where we've done a lot of really good, solid work, but also our work goes beyond that. And also talk about what our longer-term plans and vision is. So I'm very excited to share that with all of you tonight. Before I do, though, I'm going to give our police chiefs a chance to say hi and introduce themselves along with anybody else they have in the audience tonight. So without further ado, I will introduce Chief Bob Huhannison from Farmington Public Safety.
Good evening, Board. Last we spoke, I talked about the struggles we were experiencing with our staffing issues, and we talked about our plan of how we were going to handle school safety. We discussed having rotations in the schools and officers, and this first couple weeks have gone very well. I also bring some good news that an officer who had left to go to the private sector has realized that he left a good thing with the Farmington Public Safety Department. So we have welcomed him back with open arms. So that kind of corrects the issue of our school resource officer. So as soon as I can spin him up with the state, because it takes quite a bit of work to get everything put back into place that I have undone once he left law enforcement, once he is back up and running, Detective Kobernick will be reassigned back to the schools as our full-time school resource officer. So we are very happy to have her in the schools. The first week of school, we were able to reassign her and make sure she was in the school the first week, which was a resounding success. So once I get the go-ahead from the state of Michigan that I can re-swear him in as a full-time police officer, Detective Kobernick will be back in the schools, and she is just as excited as we are. So we're making strides in getting her back. So thank you for allowing us to speak tonight, and have a great night. Thank you.
Also, a man who needs no introduction, Chief King from the Farmington Hills Police Department.
Good evening, thank you, Board. First, I'd like to start off by introducing our new school liaison officer, Detective Travis Malott. He's right to the back there. Detective Malott is an 18-year veteran of the Farmington Hills Police Department. He has a significant amount of experience in investigations, focusing primarily on juvenile and victim-based investigations. He is a new addition replacing Officer Mertes, who moved back to patrol. And he will be an excellent addition to our school liaison program moving into the future year. So I wanted to introduce him. Do you want to say anything, or are you?
Yeah, I just like to say hello. Looking forward to working with everybody.
No, you don't get to go. No, you got to come up here.
No, I just wanted to say hello to everybody. Some people I've met. Some I haven't. Everybody has been extremely nice and welcoming. I look forward to working with all of you guys. Chief, I'd just like to say thank you to you for the opportunity. And I'm here to serve the school district. We're looking really forward to it. I was a high school hockey coach for 18 years, so I'm pretty familiar with schools, and I love being around kids, and this is a great opportunity to kind of go off of that and, keep kids safe. I'm looking forward to it. So thank you. Thank you for having me here. And Chief, thank you very much. Thanks.
Our other SLO needs really no introduction. It's Detective Kevin Clark is back there. He will be assisting in the transition from Detective Bureau to the school liaison position for Detective Malott. So I'm proud of that. I really have to commend Mr. Shelton, the work he's done on behalf of Superintendent Delgado and the board. Really, I've never felt the positive forward momentum of school safety working with the police department that we have right now. We've really focused on 3 different areas. I mean, it's much broader than that, but we've really focused on enhancing emergency response, preventative measures, and the positive community relations between the police departments and our community, that community involving our schools and our school children. The presentation that Mr. Shelton is going to present to you has those things in there, and I'm really looking forward to not only enhancing the safety of our students and our community, but working with the schools and getting our officers more of a normalized interaction in the schools, positive interaction with the schools, and really making those connections with our kids moving forward. So I thank you for the opportunity, and I'll turn it over to the man himself.
I don't know if they're going to leave or not, but before they leave, can we congratulate Detective Kobernick? She received an award last night for being in our schools. Is that okay? Because I don't know if these gentlemen are leaving. Would you let her know?
So last night, Detective Kobernick was honored by the American Legion as the 2022 American Legion Officer of the Year for her role as a school resource officer with the Farmington Public Schools last night.
Quite an honor. Thank you for thinking of that.
Yes, thank you for
Ms. Smith.
pointing that out.
Absolutely. So the way that we're proceeding tonight is I wanted the chiefs a chance to introduce themselves as well as our school resource officers. I'm going to go through some information relatively briefly, and then at the end of my presentation, I'm going to ask these guys to come back up and field any questions or comments that the board may have after we present. We have reformed a district safety committee. There were several years where that had kind of fallen apart and we weren't doing that. We spent all last year working actively as a school community on the school district safety team. And that involves district administrators as well as representatives from our police departments, from the fire department, from the community. And it was really a successful year for us last year, as Chief King referenced. A lot of the items that I'm going to share with everybody tonight are things that we devised as a group, that we talked about as a group, and that we've been able to implement. So I'm real proud of the work that we were able to accomplish through the course of the year last year through that district safety team, and also very excited about the things we're going to accomplish going forward. I have to forward my, there we go. So the operating word that I like to use, and actually when I met with the chiefs last week, we talked about this idea of creating and maintaining a safe and secure learning environment for our community. So I think if there was one phrase or one synopsis that really captured the essence of our goal working together, I think that would be it. Again, that work of the District Safety Committee has really reaped great benefits, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you tonight. So we've been able to make several infrastructure enhancements across the district. What you see is just one example of that, and this is a recommendation that came out of our district safety team, where a recommendation from law enforcement was to make sure that we had our hallways in our buildings color-coded with letters, so that if we did have an incident that required a first responder, it would be easier for them to find where they needed to go. I have to give credit to Mr. Barth and the facilities department, who really within just a couple weeks mobilized, got this done, and we were able to start the school year with this in place. These colors, these letters are visible from our surveillance cameras and our dispatch, so our dispatchers can very easily see where they need to respond to if there were an issue, God forbid, in one of our buildings. We made several exterior security enhancements to our buildings this summer, specifically to prevent unauthorized or hostile access. We have enhanced our camera system. Most notably, we installed camera systems in several buildings that did not have those previously, and I believe that Mr. Prescott and Mr. Gregory have talked to the board about that previously, but that's been a great addition to our system, and we're also transitioning to a new platform where we as administrators or dispatch can view those cameras remotely. So that's going to be a great security enhancement for us. So those are just a few of the infrastructure things that we've been working on, and I'm very proud of those things. We have existing single point of entry vestibules in every one of our buildings. The example you're looking at on the screen is actually East Middle School. It's where my office is, so it was really easy for me to step out and take a picture. But we have those systems in place where there's an exterior door that has a buzzer system where the secretary clears somebody in. You've all been in those through that way. There's a second door that leads into the office, and then they have to go through all those steps and sign in and go through security clearance before anybody can get into any of our buildings. So we're very proud of that. Also last year, another step that we took is we eliminated the use of exterior keys. So in all of our buildings, the only way to access those is through the fobs, through the badges or the fobs that we use. That's just an added security measure to make sure that we know who's accessing our buildings and who's in our buildings. Also this summer, again, thank you to Mr. Barth. we have installed interior classroom film. So if you have a classroom that has a window in the door or a side panel next to the door, we've put film on those windows so that it's harder for somebody to see into those classrooms that we don't want to be able to see in. So that's been a nice improvement for us. I'm working with principals and some outside vendors right now on communications, making sure that we have two-way radios in place everywhere that we need them so that staff can communicate with each other in case of an emergency. That's been something that was much needed as I talked to the principals about it, and that'll help us a lot, again, in case of an emergency where we can make sure that we have communication across the buildings. And then finally, this year, we're going to work hard on security audits, both internal and external. Security audit internally is me coordinating with the local police departments to do building walkthroughs and check things like doors and, are there exterior doors that are propped open? Are there, what security concerns do you see within the buildings? So I'm going to work closely with the chiefs and with our SROs on that starting this fall. And we also have a grant for an external audit that'll happen this fall. So in addition to those internal audits with me and the police walking through, we'll also have an external company come in and do a professional job and really tell us, here's where you need to improve. Here's where you have some issues that you can improve on. We have grant funding to spend on school safety. We just want to make sure that we're spending it on the right thing. Okay? Last year, we spent a lot of time on training. So specifically Alice, I know that all of you are hopefully at least a little bit familiar with Alice. But remember, Alice is an option-based approach to a school emergency. Okay, so the acronym stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. And the big idea with Alice is that there's not one response to an emergency. Every situation is different, and sometimes a situation requires multiple responses based on the situation, right? If you had an issue going on in a building in the 200 hallway, but you've got a classroom in the 700 hallway, the response of that classroom and of that teacher is going to be different based on that scenario. So Alice, we did a mass training last year thanks to the excellent cooperation of both of our police departments, the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, the fire department was there, and that was a massive undertaking last August, and we were able to get the entire district trained really in one day, which is phenomenal. We worked hard last year on the student drills, making sure that we are going through those drills with students and that they understand Alice and they understand how they need to react to those situations. And really with Alice, our focus, as well as with the other issues, the other programs that I'm about to talk about, our focus this year is really on making sure that we have our new staff and students trained and able to do these things. And that we're also keeping it fresh, that it's not just a one and done, but that we're constantly revisiting this with staff so that it's on their minds and it's not just something we talked about 2 years ago that they vaguely remember. So we're going to keep those going, both new staff training and revisiting with staff. Another big focus of ours last year, again based on the feedback from local law enforcement and our conversations with the district safety team, was Stop the Bleed and Go Bucket. So on the screen you see an example of a Go Bucket that's at this point in every classroom and every office in the district. And the idea of a Go Bucket is kind of an emergency kit. Within each of those, there's a garbage bag, there's a first aid kit, a really good first aid kit actually, and then what's called a Stop the Bleed kit. So once we put these buckets out, we worked with our local trainers and did Stop the Bleed training across the district. So, Stop the Bleed is how we respond in the event of a massive bleeding incident where somebody needs to have emergency first aid or they're going to bleed out. And so within that Stop the Bleed kit, there's gauze, there's gloves, there's packing material, and there's also a tourniquet that everybody's been trained on using. So we were able to get those out across the entire district last year. And I want to give a huge shout out to our school nurses, Mary Larson and Leslie Worth, as well as our community trainers from both departments, as well as Farmington Hills Fire Department, and especially the staff from Beaumont, which is Corwell now, I think. They were amazing at getting those trainings out, and we were busy. We were at every school, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, but we got it done, and we did well. One thing that I didn't list up here that I wanted to make sure I mentioned as well was Narcan. The board approved a Narcan policy, I believe in May of last year, and we trained staff in June. So at this point, we have multiple Narcan units at every building in the district, and we have a minimum of 2 staff members in each building trained in Narcan administration, which is exciting. So. A few more things I wanted to mention, and then I'll invite the chiefs back up and we can answer any questions that people have. We've been having a lot of discussion about community policing, and I think I include that in the category of those preventative and protective measures that Chief King talked about. You know, we want to make sure that we're not just preparing for emergencies, but that we're preventing them, if that makes sense. So the idea of community policing is making sure that we have a positive and constant presence of police in our buildings. We've been working together on a joint communication to get out to the community, but having police presence in our buildings is not only beneficial for us, but it's also beneficial for the department. You know, for the officers, for the department members to have a familiarity with our building and know, you know, oh gosh, if I'm going to the Red Hallway at Lanigan, I know right where that was because I was on patrol last week and I walked through for 10 minutes. So we're working on some communication with our families so that our families understand that there will be more of a police presence in our buildings. Again, it's a very mutually beneficial thing, and we want to make sure parents know and understand, our families know and understand. Just because you see 2 police cars parked in front of Farmington High School doesn't mean that there's something going on there, right? It's just having those officers in, making sure they're having positive interactions with our students, and then becoming familiar with our staff and with our buildings. We have a solid threat assessment procedure in the district. Anytime there's any kind of threat that is made or that we learn about, we have teams that meet together that address that assess that. Law enforcement is involved in those processes as well. So without disclosing too much information about that process, I can tell you that we do have a very solid process in place, and we do take those very seriously. Our secondary buildings have a new Safe Pass program that is actually pretty unique. So with the Safe Pass program, it's computer-based, and we know at all times when students are not in the classroom. So the old days of grab a piece of paper and write a quick note and the teacher signs it, it's all computer-based now. So at any time, we know who is not in class. We know who's leaving class too much. So this is a pretty innovative program they piloted last year at Warner, right? I believe at Warner they piloted it last year, and now we're bringing it to all of our secondary buildings. So we think that's going to be a nice security enhancement. We're very pleased with our school resource officer presence in our buildings, and we really perceive those positions more about relationships and more about creating bonds between our students and local law enforcement, so that when God forbid there is an issue or when something happens, those SROs already have those relationships with kids, and kids know and trust them. So that's something that we've been working on, again, shifting away from that security idea towards more about relationships and building a sense of community that our SROs are an important part of. The last thing I wanted to mention in this area was the team curriculum. So the team curriculum is a curriculum that was developed by the Michigan State Police that is centered around school safety, drug and alcohol resistance, issues mostly health-related issues, but also safety-related issues that impact our kids. And so we've had our school resource officers from both departments, as well as some additional officers trained in that team curriculum. And we're starting, as a matter of fact, we just talked last week about ways to build those inroads into our curriculum, into our classrooms, so that we've got our school resource officers in our classrooms delivering curriculum to kids. So lots of really positive things going on. I think that was my last slide. Except for inviting the chiefs to come back up and answer any questions or receive any comments that you guys have.
Ms. Weems and then Mr. Rich. Come to everybody.
Yes, so thank you. To the chiefs, thank you so much for coming to speak with us. I am very encouraged to hear from you on a few different things. I'm encouraged to hear from you on your perception of the growth and the speed and the good things that we're doing. I'm very happy that you guys have allocated such great resources to us, folks with, lots of experience, almost 2 decades of experience, folks who are awarded and recognized in our region. I'm extremely appreciative of the valuable resources that you're providing to us. And I'm also really happy to hear about all of the preventative measures that you're helping us to implement. A few things, so obviously appreciate this update. Safety and security is very, very important to all of us, and I hear that from this board, and I also hear a lot of it from parents who come to speak to us at public comment. At our last meeting, we had a really good discussion after the meeting with a parent, and I just want to make sure that parents understand that this is a topic that is very important to the board. And again, I'm very happy to see all of the great things that are happening in the district, but I also want to let folks know that there are a lot of things that are happening that we don't talk about at the board table, and that's for good reason. There isn't a desire to give a playbook, right, to folks who intend to do the school district or our students or staff any harm. So because we don't talk about it all of the time doesn't mean that it isn't top of mind for us. There's a lot going on in the background, so I just wanted to make sure that people knew that. And also, I just wanted to tell you personally how much I appreciate all that you're doing, Tom and both of our chiefs. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Smith, and then we'll come to Ms. Fox.
I'm not going to be as long, but to piggyback, I want to thank both of the chiefs as well as our SROs that are coming into our building. This may sound minute, but I saw your little kit with the gauze and everything. How many times do you change those out? Because gauze do dry out like Band-Aids, so you put a Band-Aid on and so that's, one of the questions that I have. I know it's small, it's minute, it's not much of a conversation, but, I'd like parents to know that we are keeping our health and safety packets up to date. Because as a former hall monitor myself, I've had to go in and find old Band-Aids that look like, they were the very first ones that were invented. So that's one of the things that I wanted to bring up. The bucket, could we go into more specifics what the bucket is for? Or is it just for storage or?
So there's 2 ideas behind the Go Bucket. The first idea is if you had an emergency in a classroom, it goes with you. So if you had an evacuation, a fire drill, you're going to your reunification site, whatever that is, that bucket goes with you. The other meaning of it is...
I got you. You don't have to go any further.
Okay.
Thank you for that one.
Okay. You asked about the supplies and replenishing the supplies. So the first aid kit as well as the stop the bleed kits are 3 to 5 years. So about every 3 to 5 years, we're going to need to go through that and replenish the gauze and a couple other supplies in there.
Also, I want to say what you've done is, no pun intended, I know we've got safety up here. You've killed 2 birds with 1 stone. What you've done is you're teaching our children that they can have a relationship with a police officer, and they don't have to think that that police officer is the boogeyman. They will be in, which I have seen in the past, that our police officers are there to be their confidant, their mentors, and problem solvers. But I also appreciate the fact that when I drive down 13 Mile Road, when I leave home, I can see a police car there, which means no one would think twice to go into a school and do anything to harm one of our students. My last comment is I want to thank both of these chiefs for the job that they have done with the work they have done with training these SROs, I'm sorry. It's been a long weekend. Thank you for all of what you've done, and not only with our schools, but you are working in this community and you're bringing this community together with conversations about what you're doing, not only in the schools, but what you're doing to change things, to make things for the betterment of this community. So I just wanted to thank you both for the work that you do.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Ms. Fox?
Yes. So I am also very pleased with what I'm hearing as well. I would like to know a little bit about the drills for our students, not specifically, but is it K through 12? Is it done so that students, especially younger students, are feeling, anxiety and what have you? Can we, to some degree, speak on how that works, please?
Yeah, for sure. So we do drills with all of our grade levels, from pre-K all the way to visions.
Okay.
And we always do it in a very age-appropriate way. There is a book, and I'm sorry I can't remember the name of it, but there's a storybook that a lot of our lower elementary teachers use to talk to their kids about Alice and how to prepare for a bad guy in the school kind of scenario, again, in a very age-appropriate way. The state of Michigan requires 3 different drills, K-12 for us. One this year is what they call I'm going to use the wrong word, person who means to do bad. Basically a school assailant is one of the drills that they ask us to prepare for. The other one that they ask for is what they call a hazardous situation drill. So that could be, the bank around the corner has been robbed, or there's a gas leak in the building, or something like that. That's the second kind of drill that they require. This year, the third drill that we're going to do with all of our buildings is what we call an evacuation and reunification drill, where all of our schools have identified off-site locations. And so we're actually, with our students, going to physically practice going to those off-site locations, again, for that muscle memory, and so that if we are in a situation where we have to do that, students are familiar with that. So I'm not sure if that answered your question, Ms. Fox, but that's...
No, it's very helpful. My concern was for the little ones.
Yeah.
And how that would work without them having anxieties and things like that.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Mr. Rich, then we'll come back to Mr. Walker and then Ms.
Thank you. Great presentation. This is exactly what I know the board wanted to see. We talk a lot about security and safety being extremely important to us. And we not only say it, but we also back it up. That's why, we will have our presentation later tonight about our 2020 bond allocation, and 19% of that is to security and technology updates, right? So this is what we told the taxpayers, what we told our community, this is what we wanted bond funds for, and then seeing how it's being put into place. And I'm sure we're going to have more updates on that as we move forward on that as well. That's fantastic. Just wanted to reiterate that this is something that it's coming up now because we're having a presentation. It's going back. This is what we told our community we wanted to focus on. The only thing I wanted to bring up, and again, as Ms. Weems said, not wanting to get into specifics during a public meeting for security reasons and things like that, just I'm sure that there is a contingency for power outages with regards to exterior keys. Just in the most recent instances, right, of power outages, I know that there are businesses where the only way in is with a fob, and power was out, so nobody could get into the building. Mm-hmm. So just wanted to, I'm sure that there is a contingency for in the event that there's a security concern if those fobs aren't working.
There are a couple different contingencies to that, yes. Yes, we are prepared for that scenario.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rich. Mr. Walker?
Great presentation. To echo everyone on the board, this is fabulous information to hear. If memory serves, you received a grant recently for a lot of these updates. I'm just curious as to how much of these updates came directly from that grant, and this may be a question for later on, but what are our thoughts around how we look to continue to maintain these kinds of updates as we go forward, going back to the question about replenishing the first aid kits and things of that nature. If there have been any thoughts around that, and again, how much of the grant was used for this?
Yes, you are correct. There's a grant that we received from the state called Section 97, and the vast majority of the things that I presented tonight are either coming from that grant or have come from bond funding, like the secured vestibules, for example. And part of what we're doing with that Section 97 money is having that external audit come in. And so we have deliberately not spent those funds down because we want the experts to come in and tell us, with the money that you have left, here's where you're going to get the best bang for your buck. You bring up the point of long-term sustainability, and I think that's probably a bigger conversation that we need to have as a cabinet team and that we will have.
Not a problem. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to reiterate everything that everybody said, but yeah, I'm pleased to see that, you know, the Alice training was not a one and done because we noticed there's a lot of new staff. And so it's really important for the training and the practice. And as far as the drills in the school and things like that. So it's nice to hear. Thank you, Mrs. Flax. Make sure that they're age appropriate. And, you know, with hazardous weather and everything, I mean, it's like those are, you said the 3 drills, those are safety drills, but, you know, everybody in my generation, we all grew up with the fire drills and the tornado drills. And hazardous weather is, you know, becoming an increasing problem and an increasing security risk for our children too. So it's good to see that you're having all those drills. I wanted to ask about, you said about the healthy defibrillators. Do we have defibrillators in every building? And were we able to increase the number of them through grant funds, or what's the status for that?
Thank you for that. And I think I may have skipped over that part of my presentation. I apologize for that. Yes, we have AEDs in all of our buildings, multiple AEDs. In general, at a minimum, there's one outside the main office, and there's one outside the gymnasium. There may be one outside the cafeteria, too. I think there's a minimum of 3 in all of our buildings. We also, this past summer, purchased new AEDs for our exterior stadiums at North Farmington and Farmington High School that are accessible and are out in a weatherproof container. So we have AEDs outside at those facilities as well. Dr. Delgado and I just spoke last week about the idea of enhancing that even more and looking at our, for example, our elementary playgrounds or our, our middle school athletic facilities that are outside, that are a ways away from the existing AEDs. So, in short, yes, it's definitely on our agenda. We worked with Mary and Leslie last year, our 2 school nurses, on the Michigan Heart Safe initiative, and really proud that both of our high schools are certified as Michigan Heart Safe schools. There are not a lot of them out there, and Mary, Leslie, and I intend to continue that work into our middle schools and our elementary schools, where we're doing cardiac drills with our staff and making sure that everybody's got the CPR and the AED training. So. Yes.
All right, yeah, thank you. That answered my question if the staff was being trained. You know, and just something else popped into my mind. You know, we have a lot of kids ride the buses, and is there any, what about bus safety and training and situations for buses? I mean, is that something that the security team has addressed or will address?
So I don't want to speak for Aaron Hill, who's not here tonight. He's obviously the transportation director. However, I can tell you for sure that all of our buses have very robust first aid kits on them, and Aaron does a really nice job with his drivers and training. Last summer, they did the full Alice training independently of us with a focus on bus and transportation issues. So
there's a scenario for buses too. All right, that's helpful to know for parents that have their children on buses. And then about the cameras, I know that we approved that, so every building has interior and exterior cameras now. So K through 12 and all the buildings have those. And there's an updated system that they're going to.
Yes, we're migrating from the old platform to the new platform, and all those new cameras will be on the new platform.
Yeah, and I was really pleased to see that you really pushed that Narcan training in with the staff, and the staff is trained in all the buildings. So that's a good thing. So thank you very much for all of your work.
Ms. Smith, you have something else to add?
I know it's minute, but I know what the buckets are used for. So would we please consider having covers for our young ladies if there's an emergency situation, so that no one will be not only exposed but embarrassed?
I think that's a good point, and something that we've talked about. There is something small that's in place in the first aid kits, but yes, short answer is yes.
Thank you.
We will
Thank you.
move that forward. I think Chief King wanted to come up and say something.
I just wanted to address one real quick thing when you were talking about the defibrillators and streamlining that process. There's always a better way to do things. And even in our police department and our fire department, that works really closely together. When our AEDs were up for renewal, we identified issues at an operational level. And what I mean by that is we were buying different AEDs and different pads that hooked together than our fire department was. And this was years ago. And so when we hooked up our AED, when an officer got there and hooked up an AED to an individual, and the fire department gave there with a higher level of training and had to assume that care, they had to unhook everything from ours and rehook theirs. So we said, unacceptable, let's buy joint AEDs so that all they have to do is unplug our pads and plug those pads right into their unit, and they can continue that care. Under Mr. Shelton's communication and our team efforts, we've even discussed that with your AEDs. So I just want to throw that out there, that when this safety team gets together, we just don't talk about emergency response and law enforcement. We really dive down into everything, and it's very comprehensive of what we can do to make this team and this community, and when I say that, it's not just PD, fire, public safety, and schools. We're all in this together. And everything we do, we focus with that. And that's how the benefit of us meeting in our monthly, if not bi-monthly meetings, we're getting together and we're talking about these issues with always the focus of strengthening this community and keeping it safe. So I just want to throw that out there. Even thinking that forward at an operational level, that's the benefit of this safety team under Director, or Mr. Shelton and Superintendent Delgado. Okay?
Any other questions or comments? I'm so excited to see from the time when we had our community dialogue last year where we discussed school safety till now, the tremendous amount of collaboration that has occurred and the thoughtful improvements that have been made in our safety and security and prevention measures here in our district and in our community. It's really head spinning how quickly we have risen to the challenge that was presented to us by many of the parents who attended that meeting. And I thank my board colleagues for your thoughtful questions and the concerns that you have raised. And I thank all of you for the work that you've been doing. Yes.
And can I just say one more thing? Because I think Dr. Delgado brought a school district head of safety and security. And my experience working in the schools is back when safety became an issue, it was always building-based, but it wasn't district-wide. And just listening to your presentation, to have, somebody district-wide to coordinate all the buildings and coordinate with the public, and it's just, it's a whole community. And so the work that we're doing, it's not just the schools and the police, but it's like we're all on the same team. So there's really a lot of growth, and I don't know if every district has district-wide or if we're leaders in that direction, but it's really a positive thing. And there's just, it's unfortunate in the world that we live in that we have to devote so much energy and attention to school safety, but when we have that built in, then it takes the fear away, and it just makes it a better environment where, the school can do the work that we're really here for, which is teaching and learning.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have our quarterly dashboard 2020 bond update. Dr. Delgado?
Yep, that we do. And that is our final district update of the evening, and we'll turn it over.
Thank you, Dr. Delgado, Dr. Blau, and board members. Good evening. If you recall, the last time we were here was actually on April 18th, 2023. And we said it was going to be a very busy summer with about roughly $16.3 million of construction completed in that 5-month period. So to put that in perspective, that's about $3.25 million a month, or roughly $160,000 a day every single day. So congratulations to Mr. Barth, Ms. Kaminsky, Mr. Phillips and McCarthy Smith team, Brian Smilak, and the Wakely team for a Herculean task. All the kids were able to move into the facilities. Yes, we're still doing some punch list items going forward. So we thought it'd be important to kind of wrap up with the fall presentation. This is just a breakdown of the $98 million 2020 bond. As you can see, 72% is really construction related. The next of that would be, the largest would be the 19%, as Trustee Rich pointed out, for the security and technology. And then rounding that off would be the bus purchases, again, helping ease the general fund, as well as the furniture, fixtures, and equipment as we're renovating the educational spaces. So the total budgets, as you can see, is $98 million. There is some remaining interest earnings from the 2018 bond proceeds. So again, great job to Ms. Kaminsky and the investment team to really look at maximizing the bond market. To date, there's another $2 million of interest earnings from this previous series. So about $104.6 million of total funding for projects. We've actually committed $66.8 million to date. So thank you, board members, for allowing us to come and making some very key decisions to keep this task on forward. As of today, we spent roughly $52.4 million of dollars actually spent as of August 29th. So again, just a further breakdown for the public that may be attention. Again, this is up on the district's website. We mentioned the 104.6. $66.8 million has been committed. So right below that, you can see the 4 rings. So 76% of that work is construction related. The furniture, fixtures, and equipment is roughly the 19%. I know this is glitched here a little bit. 39% of buses, that's the third ring on the right, and the far right side is the 33% of that technology spent, which is roughly the $20 million. So about $6.6 million in safety security. I think Mr. Shelton showed some very nice pictures of some of those implementations that have been done here in the last 1.5 to 2 years. So what's coming up next? So again, this is kind of a wrap up of the summer work. Again, we say summer. We did start obviously before kids were actually out and scholars came back in the fall. But bid packs 3 and 4, again, just some closeout information. Teachers do have an opportunity to basically put together some information if it's bond related, facility related. So again, working with Mr. Barth and the team. Visions, as you know, is going to be relocated to the FCS. And at the end of the day, this is one of those projects that they're in their current facility, which is great because they're going to come back in the second semester to a newly renovated facility, and we have some great pictures. Same thing with Maxfield. As you walked in today, you saw a lot of the interior finishes with the flooring, the lighting. You don't see some of the mechanical and electrical improvements. Those are behind the scenes, but you can feel it's nice and temperate in here going forward. And then bid packs 7, 8, 9. As you can see, there are some equipments that's going to be done in December timeframe. Really not interacting with any educational, but again, we've got some opportunities to put in some equipment, emergency generators, things of that nature that came in after the fact, but we want to make sure kids were able to get into school for the start of school. So a lot of great activity. Again, a breakdown of $16.3 million kind of by facility. So again, just some great pictures. Signage, flooring, main hallway improvements, the classroom furniture, the gymnasium. Again, this is the visions. I'm really going to be welcoming those students to that facility. Again, some things behind the scenes. So again, new DT transformer. We were able to accelerate some of that equipment. Sometimes you hear as long as 52 to 54-week lead items. So again, coming to the board with early bid packages, we want to say thank you. Just some of the exterior work with basketball hoops, swings, and then obviously ADA accessibility is another key factor for those projects going forward. Here at the Maxfield, you see the new entrance, again with the courtyard out front for visitors to the district. Interior finishes, obviously this room here, and corridor finishes, and more importantly, safety security with the asphalt parking lot and sidewalks, really to make it a welcoming center. This is the first impression a lot of the new students and new parents and community members will have for the district. So keeping in line with the facilities that Farmington expects. Over at the STEAM Academy, brand new bleachers, again, kind of free bragging rights that you can grab from the manufacturer. So again, getting rid of the wood bleachers and going with the ADA accessible plastic bleachers going forward. Asphalt paving, we see some new kitchen service line in the lower left with point of sale. Again, some of that's kitchen services as well as the bond, and then obviously media center lighting with a continuation of the previous work. North Farmington, same. Just point of sales on the upper right, updated kitchen renovations. I know a lot of the students always complain about bathrooms, so congratulations, updated toilet rooms to keep consistent with new exhaust fans, new ADA accessibility, low rate fixtures, that again is going to help the district save money long-term operationally. And then again, selective casework in some of the classrooms. Beachview, just some exteriors, again, brand new playground, some courtyard improvements, just really to brighten up that area. Same thing with Kenbrook, with new backstops, new playground equipment. So what's going to keep us busy for the next several months with Warner, Farmington Central, and then obviously Farmington Early Childhood. We're going to be bidding these projects out in collaboration with McCarthy Smith and with our good friends at Wakely. And then obviously tonight you'll hear from the Central Office Relocation Bid Award with Mr. Barth, myself, and Mr. Phillips. So again, we really do appreciate the board's willingness to have us meet as often as possible for early bid packages, for considerations for budgets to actuals. So at that point, I'm going to turn it back to President Blau, President Delgado, and the board for any questions.
Thank you very much. Yes, Ms. Weems.
Yes, so thank you, first of all, to Plant Moran and McCarthy and Smith. I continue to be very impressed with what I see when I walk around and look at our buildings. I'm very happy. I also wanted to take a minute really quickly just to thank our community because we talked about it a little bit before, but these things are made possible by bond dollars. We just simply cannot, with general fund dollars, make the types of investments that are needed across, a very old building, old group of buildings as we need to. And no one really thinks that, DTE transformers and generators and roofs and stuff are the sexy things that people see, but they're needed. And I tell you, a few weeks ago when I was hearing about several schools that were closed because they didn't have air conditioning, I was very proud of the fact that we had, new HVAC systems for, all of our schools. So that's extremely important. Appreciate the update. I'm always asking for the updates. Where are we? What are we doing? I had a question on commitments versus approvals. So I noticed that our commitments exceed approvals. Is that just is that the Warner stuff and the things that are to come that you guys have said, okay, here's the next body of work that we want to do and what we're bringing to the board next?
Correct. So the $52.4 million is actually board approved, in process, being invoiced. The 66.8 does represent those future programs. Again, you've committed to those projects. Again, ultimately, once the board approves, that gets switched in the actuals. The good news is you want to keep this pace because the Department of Treasury requires you to have 85% spent in the first 3 years of bond issuance. So we're right on that schedule standpoint of doing that for this series. So again, that's something I know Ms. Kaminsky checks with the bond investors as well as the Department of Treasury. So again, kudos to her to really make sure that we're bringing enough work in a systematic time that's not overtaxing to the community and students and teachers, but at the same time still complies with that 85% spend rule.
Thank you for that. And then just in keeping with what we talked about before, I do think that it may be time for our Finance and Facilities Committee to start talking about what we'll need, 5 to 10 years from now. Because as I said, the general fund just generally doesn't cover things like there's no way to budget for new roofs, 10, 20 years from now, or new HVAC systems or asphalt. And the increasing dollars that we may not even be anticipating related to safety or technology or weatherization. I'm not sure, what's going to happen later on or what's going to be required, but I just want us to be thinking about it and not feel rushed later on. So, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Heinrich.
Yeah, I was back on the slide where you had some work, the current projects, and you had the December things with all the asterisks.
I know it's really small print, we apologize.
No, we have a,
good.
A copy that I had to look at, because I saw the stars and things. So is that scheduled when the school shut down?
That's correct.
So not to disturb. And it also says pending delivery of materials. So, is that something that we anticipate a problem, or are we going to get that ahead of time?
Yeah, so the serving line equipment, kitchen equipment, let's say at Farmington Steam, again, is in. We're doing that second shift or when the students are not there. The emergency generation installation, again, we've confirmed that it's been manufactured. It's in delivery. So again, we're tracking it. But the good news is we're not taking anything away that would impact operations until that equipment's actually on site. So it's like, you don't take out the old play equipment till the new play equipment's done, and then you take it away, versus we've seen some districts unfortunately take something away, and it's like, well, it's going to be October now, and then unfortunately that school may not have a playground for 2 to 3 months. So again, we've been working very closely with the administration team, with the team, the professionals at McCarthy, Smith, and Wakely to make sure that the students can have a learning environment. And then I think, as Ms. Weems said, a lot of this stuff is behind the scenes, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. Again, not beautiful stuff, but again, it's going to help you on your operational savings, which is obviously going to help your general fund, so.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions? Wow.
Thank you very much.
Very exciting.
Yes.
Very exciting improvements in our schools. Thank you so much.
Nope, great, thank you.
And that completes our,
Thank you, Mr. Wells. That completes our district updates.
wonderful. Next, we have reports from board committees. First, we have Mr. Rich with our Communications and Community Engagement Committee.
Thank you. So it was the first meeting of the Communications and Community Engagement Committee of the year. Part of that committee now are myself, Dr. Blau, and Ms. Heinrich. So mark on your calendars, everyone. October 3rd is going to be our first board community dialogue of the year. This will be held at 6:30 p.m. right here at the Maxfield Education Center, and the topic will be budget priorities in the district. As we start looking forward into next year, we want to hear from you. What do you see as being the most important things that you want to see in our budget? What do you think should be getting more funding? What do you think we should be putting a little bit on the back burner moving forward? These are all things that we want to hear from you, so we look forward to having that conversation. There is a survey that I believe it's being sent out last week, correct? To gather ideas for the other 2 dialogues scheduled for February 13th and May 14th. Again, this is the time that we can actually have this kind of dialogue, because that's not the time here at the meeting. So we want to hear, what does our community want to talk about, and really focus our dialogues and those sessions on those. So look into your emails. If you haven't seen that survey yet, please take that. And we look forward to seeing you on October 3rd.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Rich. Next, we have our Finance and Facilities Committee, Ms. Weems.
Thank you. The Finance and Facilities Committee members include myself, Mrs. Heinrich, and also Mrs. Fox. We met last week as a committee, and we walked through Farmington Hills right-of-way requirement for New Visions Unlimited. It's a request for an additional right-of-way footage and a water main easement with an easement deed. Their request is in line with right-of-way and easement requests throughout the city. The easement is required for new service to Visions. The committee had several questions about the easement. I think Mrs. Heinrich actually walked or rode around the property to kind of get a better understanding, and I won't take away from the presentation that we're going to hear later on today, but this matter will come to us as a discussion item for today so that the rest of the board can develop an understanding and ask their questions, and will come for board action at the following meeting. So, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to discussion items with a review of the City of Farmington Hills right-of-way requirement for the New Visions Unlimited.
Thank you. And Mr. John Barth, our Director of Facilities and Operations, will lead us in this conversation.
Good evening, board members. Dr. Delgado. So for New Vision site work to begin, the City of Farmington Hills is requiring that the school district approve widening the right-of-way along Shiawassee Road, Tuck Road, and Astor Avenue, as shown on the map. For those that may not know, a right-of-way is defined as the right to build and operate a railroad line, road, or utility on land belonging to another. Astor Avenue is a road that no longer exists in its entirety between Tuck Road and Haynes Avenue. The portion of the road, however, from the back of the school to Tuck Road still remains and has been used by the district as an egress for the past 40 years with permission from the city. The new bus lot design provides egress onto Tuck Road using the remaining portion of Astor Avenue. The agreement allows the district to continue use of Astor as long as we maintain it. Also, please note that the paved lot to the south of Astor Avenue, which is shown there where the bus is angled, near Tug, is owned by the district and will be used for bus parking. The request to widen the right-of-way and its width is in keeping with requirements of any home or business owner in the city, according to city engineers. The easement request, shown as a small red bar across Astor Avenue, is for the new water main that will service Visions Unlimited. For those that don't know, an easement is the right to cross or otherwise use someone else's land for a specified purpose. In this case, for the city to run a water main and have access to it. City documents have been reviewed by Clark Hill, who completed a similar agreement with the city back in 2019 for Warner and early childhood. Board approval would allow the superintendent to enter into right-of-way and easement agreement with the city of Farmington Hills. Therefore, facilities management is recommending the board approve this recommendation at the next meeting on the 26th.
Any questions? Yes.
I just do have a question. I want to make sure folks understand what we're looking at, because some of us don't. I know you spent an incredible amount of time with us at the meeting to help us walk through, but could you explain, like, what is the blue, and for those who may be color challenged, that's the line at the bottom, and what is the I call that, like, not brown, but like orange, or, yeah, whatever that color is. You know, tell us what those are. You've explained the red already, but would just appreciate an understanding, what is it that we're looking at?
So the colors you're looking at are the right-of-way requests. That's the widening of the right-of-way. They have the right to do that whether we agree or not. I mean, ultimately, they could force us to do it, but really, it's nothing they don't ask any business owner to do. They did a great job doing Shiawassee. It's gorgeous for a new building, obviously. It's a new road. And so what they're requesting is, in the future, they want the rights to the areas shown in the colors. So Shiawassee would be the orange, Tuck would be the green to the right, and the blue would be all along Astor Avenue, which doesn't quite exist as Astor Avenue, but they want that right of way, thinking probably years down the road, it might become Astor Avenue again. So those are the widening spaces for the right of way, which gives them the right to access that property, run utility lines, put up signage, whatever they need to do for the city. So it's actually, like I say, quite in step with what they've done everywhere across the district. They did back in 2019 for Warner and ECC, something similar. So that's what those colors represent. The diagram basically is showing the in and outs for cars, for buses, the fact that we have to use the buses that egress onto Tuck Road, where that purple is. But basically, we need that space, and we sort of need them to okay this. I mean, in terms of allowing us to use this if we give them the right-of-way access they're requesting, so.
So the right-of-way would not impede our ability to do what we're currently doing, or what we suspect that we might need to do in the future. So we can still access buses, we can still park buses where we need to.
Yeah, so it's very technical in talking to Dane at length with Clark Hill. So basically what happens is you're basically giving them property, but it's your property. So they can use the property. They could, quite honestly, they could put up a sign or two if they needed to. They won't do anything likely, but they need to run a utility line or access the property to do something with it. We still own the property. We're not giving up property to them.
Yeah, I went over there and I was driving up and down the streets and in and out in the parking lot. Nobody called the police on me. But, you know, just to get the lay of it, and it's just, you know, it's either grass, open field, or asphalt parking lot, and there's no impediments or anything. It's not like we have to take down anything. If they want to do something, it's not going to interfere with the structure or anything. It's just open space, and it's just, I didn't see any problems just looking at the physical site. It was really helpful just to go around and figure out where everything was and how the roads are. You know, it's one thing to see it on paper, but it's another thing to see how that they are physically. And I didn't really see any problems with it.
It's really a win-win situation for us, because by allowing us to use that egress, which is Astor Avenue, and maintain it, well, we want to maintain it. We want to build it up for the buses and use it for the buses. We have no intention of letting it go in disarray because we need that egress. That's our egress for the buses. So to us, it felt like a win-win. Again, we're not giving up anything. We're getting our new water service in for New Vision. So it's very positive for us.
Any further questions? Thank you so
Thank you.
much for clarifying this for us. Next, we have public comments. During the public comment portion of our board meeting, members of the community are welcome to address the board. Each community member will have up to 3 minutes to speak, and I'm hoping that our tech crew in the back will put the timer, yep, there it comes. The timer up for us. We are, pardon me? One moment. We wish to remind our community that this is a meeting of the board held in public to provide transparency, but that this is not a public meeting. As a result, we will respectfully listen to your comments, but we will not respond or engage in dialogue with you in this venue. However, please be assured that we are listening very closely to every comment and that a member of the Board of Education and/or our superintendent, Dr. Delgado, will follow up with you so that we can set up a time to engage in dialogue together and address any concerns, suggestions, or questions you have if you so desire. There are cards on the back table. If you are interested in making public comment, just bring the card to Mrs. Staren's ceramic container.
These are the handouts.
Okay. All right. Okay. Eugene Greenstein. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. 23-24 school year has started, as you guys well know, and we still don't have any goals for the school district, and there are no sub-goals for the board itself. This is an issue that has been presented to the board many times, and as recently as the board-city council joint meeting. Since then, the state M-STEP results have come out, and again, the Farmington school literacy results are abysmal. If there are not clear expectations set for the schools by this board, it's hard to see how this situation will be remediated. Improving literacy is the primary concerns of the parents and the taxpayers and must be the primary goal of the schools. To help students in the upper grades, tutoring can make a big difference. What is the budget for tutors, and how many tutors are we short, if any? Last year, we were short tutors. If literacy is not the primary goal of our schools, then what is? We look forward to meaningful change in academic results. Let's start with clear goals and objectives. The school year has started, and we are clearly late. Thank you.
If you'll see me after the meeting, I'll give you a copy of our goals. We talked about them at the beginning of the meeting, but you weren't here yet, so give those.
Okay, but they weren't published on the website.
We just announced them this evening.
Yesterday, but thank you.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Mr. Greenstein. David Villar. Good evening.
Hello, hello. I wanted to kind of encourage the community to be aware that student improvement comes from parent involvement and community engagement with the kids directly. For a lot of people who especially come across as conservative, it's really amazing at how people are so dependent on the government to solve these social issues without hardly much dialogue on inter-community effort with the kids directly. So for that reason, I tend to encourage the board to be skeptical of hypercritical analysis of how the board is doing when those critics have not shown any direct involvement with the kids with tutoring, for instance. There is a tutoring program every Saturday, and it's been published many times. And we need to have more of the critics to be participating and to give their feedback on those programs. Literacy, as well as math and as well as social studies, certainly need to be improved, but simply complaining about the lack of improvement is insufficient as a community. So my suggestion is that we get some feedback, as always, from parents on where we think these improvements need to be made, whether or not we need to have more programs to assist the kids in focusing, whether or not we are out of alignment with the rest of the state. For instance, I like the math program, the University of Chicago format, which is used to get the kids at least on a baseline level of math proficiency. But I'm the only person that brings this up in the school board meetings, in the public comments. So when people complain about the lack of math proficiency, they're looking at metrics, but they're not really looking at where the math literacy is sourced from, and that's important. So the same thing with any of these subjects. Literacy is something that goes across all subjects, so it's important for us as a community to get involved with the kids directly and then to give you guys feedback. If we don't do that, we can complain all day about metrics. We can complain all day about, what we think the board is or isn't doing. We're wasting our kids' time. And on a loosely related note, I've been told that the school lunch programs have improved, but I think we should really improve them even more. I'm not under the impression that the school lunch quality is really up to where it needs to be.
That's your time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. They reset the timer partway through. So, yeah.
That's okay.
Apologies.
I think I'm in.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Bill Lubaway. Good evening.
Before I start, have you figured out the timer?
Yes.
Okay, good evening. I handed out my version of the M scores. It's not my version, this is a compilation. The problem I have is that when we get reports from the schools, we don't get anything that says, well, here's a problem, and we're solving it. And so what I'd like to say is when you look at this list of M-STEP scores, when I look at the column from the first column from the left, 2023 minus 19, that's 4 years progress since 2019. They're red all the way because you fell behind. And oh, by the way, that's the year that you earned an average D. For just a 1 year increase from last year, we have some progress, but what happens is we have no grades that are going to be published for 2023, so we don't know if everybody else didn't do better. But that's our Michigan legislature. What's my concern? Well, as we go about spending money on new buildings, on the second page, there's a chart, and it shows a couple of numbers and trends. One is and they illustrate that we're losing a long-term market share. And the blue numbers are population less than 18, which is the people we ought to be serving. The red numbers are the enrollment. Population has gone up 5%, our enrollment has gone down 21%. That's a 26% gap in market share. And so I guess I would ask you, figure out the year that you started, and you can figure out how many students we've lost during your tenure. The other couple of things I have that I'll try to cover real quick are the community dialogues. I basically think those are a joke. And it goes to the circulation of the questionnaire. And what it has is, here are 6 different choices. And oh, by the way, if you want another choice, like how are we doing at education, it won't accept the results unless you check one of the 6 choices that you've pre-selected. I'll explain that more after the meeting to whoever cares. Public comments, 3 minutes, there's no board dialogue, there's no community dialogue. Even when we have one-on-one discussions with board members, they're never published.
Thank you, Mr. Lovaway. Is there any further public comment? Any additional public comment? Seeing no further public comment is now closed. Next, we move on to our action items. We have the approval of bid package number 10, the renovations to the new central office. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Blau. Before I make a recommendation here, I want to remind the board that this was a discussion item at our last meeting. We had several of our questions answered, and also recall that the Finance and Facilities Committee met on this topic previously as well and got a lot of our questions answered. The primary questions at the Finance and Facilities meeting were around necessity, need, especially as it related to the central office building. We have a lot more discussion around adult spaces than we do the student center sort of spending, although, I mean, all of it is important, but we kind of kicked the tires a bit on that a bit more and learned that the improvements that would be needed in the existing facility are significantly more costly than if we were to move facilities because of the age of the building, the configuration of the building, and some of the items that would need to be done to make the building compliant. So when you start renovations on a building, you have to bring things up to code. And so that was the rationale for the decision to move forward in a different direction. We also asked some really good questions about what other costs might be out there that aren't included yet, you know, around furnishings and that sort of thing, but still, in comparison, the costs were significantly lower, which is why the Finance and Facilities Committee recommends to the board this consideration. So with that, if we'll make a motion, and then if anybody has any discussion items or questions, we can answer that at that time. So I move that the Board of Education approve bid pack number 10, including renovations to the new central office, formerly Visions Unlimited, a bid alternate for roofing at the new central office, and nutrition service kitchen equipment at Farmington High School and Lanigan. The central office renovation project cost of $2,438,330 includes a construction contingency of $221,667. The food service equipment contract of $121,644 includes a contingency of $11,059. Both projects will be funded by a combination of the 2020 bond and the nutrition services fund.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Weems, seconded by Ms. Heinrich. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, let's go to a roll call vote.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Ms. Weems?
Yes.
Ms. Heinrich?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
I myself, yes. Dr. Blau?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes indeed. Excellent.
Can I make a statement, please? So I've been on the board here for a couple of years now, and I continue to ask the exact same question. You have a number of contractors here who are providing a number of roofing and what have you. My question is to you, are there any minority contractors that are a part of this
If I might, we asked those questions in the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting, and we provide an opportunity to get those questions answered again at the point at which we have a discussion. We can always ask questions whenever we like, and would like to provide the opportunity for McCarthy and Smith to answer those questions.
Yeah, that's why I asked.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Actually, I did send you an email on this, Ms. Fox, after the previous meeting,
Yeah,
but
there were two.
yes, ma'am. Yeah, there were correct. There were 4% respondents, so we sent the invitation to over 500 contractors that we're aware of. Plan rooms then send them onwards to more. But out of the 97 respondents, we had 4% respond that were that distinguished designation.
Okay, so they responded. Are any of them a part of this?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. Moving on, we have two proclamations to share with the community this evening and to vote on as a board. September 2023 is both National Recovery Month and National Suicide Prevention Month. And we have been asked by the Oakland, I want to make sure I get the name right, the Oakland Community Health Network, to consider our own board proclamations in support of these important issues. So we're going to hear those proclamations now. First, Ms. Heinrich, if you would please read the National Recovery Month proclamation, and then Mr. Rich, if you would read the National Suicide Prevention Month proclamation.
Okay, National Recovery Month, September 2023. Whereas, according to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA, in 2021, 16.5% of Americans, or 46.3 million people, 12 years or older, were classified as having a substance use disorder in the past year, including 29.5 million people who were classified as having an alcohol use disorder and 24 million people who were classified as having a drug use disorder. And whereas, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, over 105,000 overdose deaths occurred in the United States in 2022, a 2% decrease from 2021. And whereas substance use recovery is important for individual well-being and vitality, as well as for families, friends, communities, and businesses. And whereas the Board of Education of Farmington Public Schools continues to educate and raise awareness of the risks and potential harm associated with prescription drug misuse. And whereas stigma and stereotypes associated with substance use disorders often keep people from seeking treatment that could improve their quality of life. And whereas substance use disorders occur when the recurrent use of alcohol and/or other drugs causes clinically or functionally significant impairment, such as health problems, disability, and failure to meet major responsibilities at work, school, or home. And whereas substance use disorder recovery is a journey of healing and transformation, enabling people to live in a community of their choice while striving to achieve his/her full potential. And whereas substance use disorder recovery benefits individuals with substance use disorders by focusing on their abilities to live, work, learn, and fully participate and contribute to society, enrich the community, culture. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of Farmington Public Schools hereby recognizes September 2023 as a National Recovery Month. Farmington Public Schools calls upon our citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, faith-based organizations, and schools to recommit our state to increase awareness and understanding of substance use and the need for appropriate and accessible services to promote recovery.
Thank you very much, Ms. Heinrich. Mr. Rich?
Thank you. Whereas September is known as National Suicide Prevention Month and is intended to help raise awareness surrounding suicide prevention resources available in the community, and whereas World Suicide Prevention Day is observed each year on September 10th, and whereas suicidal thoughts can affect anyone regardless of age, gender, race, orientation, income level, religion, or background, and whereas, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, each year more than 48,000 people die by suicide, and whereas suicide is the second leading cause of death for people 10 to 34 years of age, the fourth leading cause among people 35 to 54 years of age, and the eighth leading cause among people 55 to 64 years of age. And whereas organizations like the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, and the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline 988 work to help individuals in crisis and provide resources to shed light on this highly stigmatized topic. And whereas every member of our community should understand that throughout life's struggles, we all need the occasional reminder that we are all silently fighting our own battles. And whereas the Board of Education of Farmington Public Schools, FPS, is committed to being a zero suicide organization and cultivating a network of providers who are engaged in the zero suicide philosophy. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of Farmington Public Schools, FPS, hereby recognizes September 2023 as National Suicide Prevention Month. FPS calls upon our citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools to recommit our state to increasing awareness and understanding of suicide prevention and the need for appropriate and accessible services to assist individuals in crisis.
Thank you. Did you have anything that you could share with us about what we're doing in our district?
Yes, I'd just like to thank the board for their proclamation, for both of these proclamations, as the challenges of substance abuse as well as suicide prevention and suicidal ideations are certainly something that not only affects adults but our children in our schools. So we have quite extensive suicide prevention and awareness programs, starting with every single ID card, student ID card, has the suicide prevention hotline number on it. We have several programs, not just through our health classes, but in large group as well as small group sessions with our counselors, with our social workers, and our very own Onisha Martin, who you recently approved as our special education supervisor, but our mental health coordinator, has presented several times and will be presenting this Thursday night in a suicide prevention community forum at the Hawk, 5:30 to 8:30. That's sponsored by the Farmington Hills and Southfield Police. So it's a community dialogue, a roundtable, and Ms. Onisha Martin will be representing the school district and doing another one of her really important presentations. This is another partnership, as she did last year, as the school did last year, with SAFE, Suicide Awareness for Everyone. And so we do want to be a 0% district, and that's something that we're deeply committed to.
Thank you. Yes.
I will also just add that there's a suicide prevention community forum on September 14th, this Thursday, from 5:30 to 8:30. Farmington Hills and Southfield Police with mental health experts are going to be discussing solutions related to prevention. I know that Farmington Public Schools is involved in that as well, along with SAFE and Cornwell Health and so forth and so on. It's at the Hawk. Is that what you just mentioned?
It is.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Simon?
Yeah, we just had a big presentation on school safety, and when we talk about school safety, we focus on shooters and intruders and things like that, but drugs kill. In my own family, I have both of my brother's youngest sons in their early 20s, were introduced to drugs in school and died in their early 20s because of drugs. And so I would like to know what our school district is doing to address keeping drugs out of school, drug education, drug prevention, and have that added to the school safety, because I think that is probably more important. I don't want to say more important, it is not more important, but it is just as important. And it is something that is not as visible, but it is there. And, you know, it's just reading through this proclamation. It's one thing to have a proclamation, but I remember when I was brought on the board and joined the board in 2020, we had a DEI proclamation, and the conversation at that time was, we want more than just a proclamation, we want action items to go along with it. And so just reading through this, I appreciate all the work that is being done to raise awareness, but just having a recovery month in September 23 and going on with business as usual is not enough.
The team program that the police chief spoke of, I recall Officer Clark telling us a little bit about that last year during our community dialogue. And my understanding is that it does have elements of drug prevention, awareness, and how to say no. In the olden days, when I was a new teacher, we had the DARE program, the Drug Abuse Resistance Education Program, where officers would come in. In my recollection, when Officer Clark explained that new program to us, that they've been trained in and they're going to be bringing that into our schools this year. The TEAM program has those elements.
Yeah, when my kids were in school, they had those programs, and I still have the bumper sticker on my bulletin board in my mudroom.
Yeah, so we are addressing that.
There are quite a few things that we're happy to give the board an update.
Okay, yeah, that would be helpful.
Yes, Ms. Smith.
Dr. Delgado and Trustees Weems mentioned the suicide, the meeting on the 14th. Unfortunately, I won't be able to attend. This is a part 2. They had part 1 in Southfield over the summer. And the conversation was mainly about talking about gun issues, and then parents stood up and community members throughout Southfield, because there were police chiefs there, and Wayne County Sheriff Raphael Washington, brought up issues to that community, and they discussed it where we are dealing with a lot of suicide. Parents brought that up. So this is a part 2 of the part 1 of the dialogue. It took place in Southfield, and now we are hosting here because both the police departments wanted to show that we do work collaboratively. I'm very happy to see this proclamation regarding suicide prevention. One is no important than the other. I have a history of family members in my family that have committed suicide. Most of you don't know, but last November 21st, my brother took his own life. We had a young lady that attended Farmington Public Schools, and her mother also worked here. And many of you may have heard about it a few years ago, that took her life and jumped from the I-696 freeway. We also have had conversations around with, many of you know, Councilman Ken Massey, and he throws an event every year, a baseball event that Mr. Rich has taken part in as a player on the team I played to, well, I attempted to play. But at the end of the day, it's very important to know, many people don't talk about it and discuss their depression because of people that will say you're crazy, or they bully and they continue to just nag and gnaw, and you don't know what goes on in someone's life. And you don't know what that final button is. Some people will keep pushing till they think that, well, you know what, I can get them to walk away from a job or a committee or whatever, but you don't know what's going on with someone. Most people that use drugs, they use those drugs to subside in getting rid of that pain. And that is a pain that no one will understand. Suffering from depression myself, which I try not to talk about because I have been labeled as crazy. But what people don't understand is we don't like to hear the word the dark side, because it's not a dark side. It's a position that we are in that we cannot get out. So I appreciate us having this conversation and this proclamation. I too would like to see us to continue with doing proclamations, but doing the work, not just having these here and they're not doing anything. Drug use does work hand in hand with suicide. So I think that we should consider, even as adults, the bullying that goes on daily, because our students learn from our behavior. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Okay, do we have a motion? Yes, Mr. Rich.
I move that the Board of Education approve September 2023 as National Recovery Month and National Suicide Prevention Month as presented.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Rich, supported by Ms. Smith. Is there any additional discussion? All right. Can we just do all in favor?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Next, the consent agenda. Yes, Ms. Everett.
I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda. A, approval of minutes. Number 1, August 8th, 2023 special joint meeting. Number 2, August 15th, 2023 regular meeting. Number 3, August 26th, 2023 board retreat. And B, Head Start Director monthly report.
Support.
Motion by Ms. Heinrich, supported by Mr. Rich. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Reports from board representatives. Do we have any board representative reports this evening? I don't know that we've had a chance yet to meet with our, I know I'm going to the Education Foundation meeting tomorrow, but I can't report on that. So, all right, then let's move on. And we have no further business, so our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.